Hey, Microsoft! Welcome to the year 2021. It's about time. News.
Skip it up and that up.
So, with how monstrous of a console the Xbox Series X has been, it's always been a head scratcher to me, even though there's some things that Microsoft did right out of the gate that Sony did not. For example, having expandable storage ready and also allowing you to at least, remember that wasn't a thing.
From the iPhone 13 to the Galaxy S22, there are some amazing phones coming up. Here are the ones we are most excited about. So let's start with an obvious one, the iPhone 13. We're expecting Apple to take the wraps off its new flagship phone this September, so it may be that we do not have long to wait. Like the iPhone 12 series, we are expecting multiple models in the iPhone 13 lineup, including the base iPhone 13, the Pro, and hopefully a more affordable mini version as well. We're not expecting huge physical changes to the phone beyond maybe a new sunset gold color and maybe a smaller notch on the front of the phone. Some rumours even say we might see the return of Touch ID somewhere on the phone, which would be great because, of course, now we're all wearing masks all the time, Face ID is a little more tricky. The cameras are supposed to be getting a pretty decent upgrade though, with particular improvements being given to the wide-angle mode, particularly with night shots. Some rumours also suggest that we might see a better zoom system with much longer reaching zoom than the 2.5 times on the current phone. That would be great, as the iPhone does not come close to competing with the amazing zooms you can get on the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and I really do love using zooms in my photography. There's also supposed to be a variety of new filters to help you get better colour. In fact, according to the rumours, it is all of these camera features which are going to be the biggest upgrades we will see on the iPhone 13. And as a photographer, I am totally fine with that. We're not expecting the launch of Samsung's Galaxy S22 series until next year, so it's perhaps unsurprising that there haven't been any massive leaks just yet. Historically, Samsung has launched its phones in February or March, but last year it launched its S21 line in January. Whether or not it does the same thing this time around remains to be seen. Like the iPhone, some of the biggest upgrades we're expecting on the S22 line are really focused around the camera. A teaser from one of Samsung's own social media accounts hinted that we might get the first phone with a whopping 200 megapixel image sensor. Such a huge camera is all of the really do love 5 times on the current phone. That would be great, as the iPhone does not come close to competing with the amazing zooms that you can get on the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and I really do love using zooms in my photography. That would be great, as the iPhone does not come close to competing with the amazing zooms that you can get on the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and I will be from social media accounts hinted that we might get the first phone with a whopping 200 megapixel image sensor. Such a huge resolution will likely go a very long way to improving the quality of those zoomed-in shots, particularly if you're using the digital zoom at 30 or 100 times as you can on the S21 Ultra. Speaking of zoom though, the S22 Ultra quality of those zoomed-in shots, particularly if you're using the digital zoom at 30 or 100 times as you can on the S21 Ultra. Speaking of zoom though, the S22 Ultra is rumoured to get a continuous optical zoom, rather than having to swap between set 3 times or 10 times optical zoom levels as you currently have to. Beyond the camera though, we're not expecting any major upgrades, particularly nothing major changing in the design. We're confident that there will be a range of handsets in the S22 line, starting from the base model all the way through to the most high-performance S22 Ultra, and it is the Ultra that we do mostly expect to get all of the camera improvements that I've already discussed. Now, Google has already shown off much of the detail of the Pixel 6, but it won't actually be on sale until sometime in October. That is something of a tease, of course, but we do know enough to be very excited about Google's next flagship. The Pixel 6 has some major camera improvements itself, including a new image sensor, which can apparently capture 150% more light. And as any photographer will tell you, more light means better looking photos, particularly if you are taking those shots in low light situations. There's also a 4 times optical zoom on the Pixel 6 Pro alongside a super wide angle lens. But one of the biggest changes is that Google is going to be using its own homemade Tensor processor inside the phone rather than using one of Qualcomm's chips as it has done on previous models. Google hasn't been specific about exactly what kind of performance upgrade we might see processor inside the phone rather than using one of Qualcomm's chips as it has done on previous models. Google hasn't been specific about exactly what kind of performance upgrade we might see with its own chip inside the phone rather than using one of Qualcomm's chips as it has done on previous models. Google hasn't been specific about exactly what kind of performance upgrade we might see with its own chip, but it has said that we will find big upgrades to AI and speech recognition, as well as various types of computational photography improvements. The Pixel 6 will be among one of the first phones running the latest Android 12 software, and it's got some cool things on the Pixel that we are excited to use, including the ability to create entire themes for the phone's interface based on the dominant colors on whatever photo you set as the background. Sure, we are already excited about the Galaxy S22 line, but the S21 line might not be finished quite yet. We got the Galaxy S20 FE at the end of September last year, so it may well be that we get the Galaxy S21 FE sometime in the coming weeks or months. The S20 FE, which stands for Fan Edition, was the most affordable phone in the lineup, and it mixed that affordable price with some great specs all round that made for a lovely user experience. I liked it so much I even awarded it a coveted CNET Editor's Choice Award, and that is saying something. Some leaked specs includes a 6.4-inch display, a triple rear camera setup with a 32-megapixel main sensor, an in-screen fingerprint scanner, and fast charging. Here's also hoping that Samsung can make the asking price even more achievable. Microsoft Surface Duo is a quirky dual-screen device that CNET reviewer Scott Stein found to be a little hit and miss. It was an interesting concept, but underwhelming specs, some awkward software issues, and a general lack of apps that really take advantage of those two screens meant that we were a little bit underwhelmed. So what can we expect from its replacement? Well, some leaks have pointed towards an upgraded triple rear camera setup, as well as much improved internal specs, including 5G connectivity. Now that might go a long way to addressing some of the issues we had with the first model, but Microsoft will also need to address some of those software issues, including how buggy the first one was. Still, it is interesting to see more folding phone ideas, particularly as Samsung has just taken the wraps off its Galaxy Z Fold 3. That phone has a whole heap of upgrades and tweaks and changes that make it one of the most desirable phone ideas, particularly as Samsung has just taken the wraps off its Galaxy Z Fold 3. That phone has a whole heap of upgrades and tweaks and changes that make it one of the most desirable folding phones on the market, so Microsoft will have to do a lot if it's going to compete. We expect Microsoft might take the wraps off the Surface Duo 2 sometime in the next few weeks or months, so we might not have long to wait to see what it's like. But what are you most excited about? Is there anything that I have forgotten to add to this list? Do make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to keep it CNET for a lot more.
That wasn't a thing at first, at least be able to transfer your 9th gen games that were on internal storage over to external storage, even a USB hard drive, until you want to play them again. Then you would just put them back onto the internal storage in the Series X or Series S. Sony initially didn't let you do that, remember? You just had to have either had to have the games in the internal storage, and that's it. You had to delete them and then re-download them again if you wanted to. But one of the things that Microsoft didn't have is an updated UI for the Series X and S. Look pretty much the same as the one on the One X does, or Xbox One does, and it was only running in 1080p. Well, finally, they're going to change that. This comes from comicbook.com. I'll read it to you, then we will discuss. With today's update, alpha skip-ahead insiders on Xbox Series X consoles connected to a 4K display can begin flighting an increased resolution UI. This change means home, guide, and other areas of the UI will be displayed in a higher native resolution for increased sharpness and text readability. Now, you wouldn't think this would be a big deal. Like, alright, it isn't the end of the world that the UI was 1080p, or still is now 1080p on the Series X and Series S. But you do notice it quite a bit. You do see pixelization and aliasing around the text, and it's not a good look for a console that's supposed to be 4K/8K, which I use air quotes around the 8K with both the PS5 and Series X, because neither console is comfortably outputting 8K unless it's upscaled. My 3090 under here can barely run games in 8K. There's no way these consoles are running games in 8K, but they can output 8K. See, these are all the things, again, and I know people are going to, Richard, why are you saying this? The consoles are out, get over it. It's all these small things that add together that just make me think the consoles could have waited another 6+ months to come out. I'm not even talking about the fact that the semiconductor shortage, but things like the UI not really being updated from the Xbox One, and the fact that Sony did not have the NVMe storage ready yet, and they didn't have options for you initially to transfer your games to temporarily store them on external storage until you wanted to play your 9th gen game again. All of these things are like, man, these should have been there at launch. They should have been there at launch, and they weren't. And it just kind of showed me that the consoles weren't ready for prime time. I personally don't, I mean, obviously features get added, and they iron out bugs and they do updates. I mean, we've seen that since the 7th generation of consoles. You know, I mean, consoles always get updates, but over the internet, firmware updates and software updates and patches. You know, it's not like Microsoft. Remember the Blade interface they had for the UI with the 360 initially? It's not like they stuck to that. They upgraded it. But it just like basic things, like having a UI that doesn't look extremely dated, or having it that you could add storage to the console when games like Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, isn't it closing in at like 300 gigabytes? That's one game. That's one game. And you give 600 gigs and change of storage inside of the PS5 if you don't have any extra storage. Which, because it's still in beta, technically none of us do have it right now unless you have the beta software from Sony. So that's a basic thing to need, is extra storage. It's not that's not something you could just sweep under the rug and be like, oh, I could wait a couple months for it. No, you really need that storage from the get-go. So as much as I have the consoles, as much as I enjoy them, I still think they could have waited at least 6 more months to come out. But I know people get pissed off when I say that, but I don't care. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one. Hey, Microsoft.